In this short video, we'll be discussing object relative clauses with prepositions. This is the third type of relative clause we'll be discussing. With object relative clauses with prepositions, again, we start with two separate sentences, and we're going to use the second sentence as the relative clause. We have the first sentence, the student is from Rwanda, you spoke to her in the library. So again, we're looking for a noun that is in both the first sentence and in the second sentence. So the student is the noun we want to describe. And if we look at the second sentence, you spoke to her in the library. Her is referring to the student. But notice in this sentence, her is the object of the preposition to. Keep that in mind because that's going to be important when we write the final formal version of this sentence with a relative clause. So as usual, we put the second sentence into the first sentence, and we get the student whom you spoke to in the library is from Rwanda. So we moved her to the front of the relative clause, and we replaced her with whom, the relative pronoun. We know that we have to use whom because a student is a person. One last thing we do is we move the preposition to the front of the relative clause. So we have the sentence, the student to whom you spoke in the library is from Rwanda. This sentence may sound a little strange, but this is actually the most formal way to write a sentence with an object relative clause with a preposition in it. Let's look at another example. The exam is tomorrow. You are studying for the exam. So in this sentence, the exam is the same as the exam in the second sentence. But in this case, you see that we have a preposition, so the exam is an object of the preposition. We're going to combine these two sentences, and we have the exam, which you are studying for, is tomorrow. We move the exam to the front of the relative clause. We replaced it with which because the exam is a thing. And for the last step, we move the preposition for to the front of the relative clause, and we get the formal sentence, the exam for which you are studying is tomorrow. Let's take a look at a larger example. The grammar textbook can be purchased in the bookstore. The professor was talking about the textbook. We again have two sentences. We want to use the second sentence as the relative clause. We need to look for the noun in the first sentence that is the same in the second sentence. And we have the grammar textbook. We want to describe the grammar textbook because we have it here in the first sentence and it's also in the second sentence. Now we're going to combine the sentences. We have the grammar textbook, which the professor was talking about, can be purchased in the bookstore. So we move the textbook to the front of the relative clause right after the grammar textbook, and we replaced it with the relative pronoun which. And again, we use which because a grammar textbook is a thing. And to make this sentence more formal, we're going to move the preposition about to the front of the relative clause, and we get this sentence. The grammar textbook about which the professor was talking can be purchased in the bookstore. Now take a look at this sentence. We'll go through the steps and you can try to figure out what the final sentence is going to be. Here's another example. The university is not accepting any more students. Maria applied to this university. So you can try combining these two sentences. Again, use the second sentence as a relative clause to describe a noun in the first sentence. In this example, we have the woman is a professor at UCLA. You sat behind her on the bus yesterday. Combine the two sentences using the second sentence as the relative clause. And for our last example, we have New York University is the university. Many students apply to this university, but few students are accepted. Try to combine these two sentences again.